I'm speaking loud enough? Yeah, okay, good. The question is why taking the burden to come to Germany and work on an old-fashioned analog book for your photography, and why not making the whole thing digital?
It's an interesting question that you ask. I did do a book that we did together digitally once. It was the oil book, and that was kind of 2007, and actually you try to help me promote it. And we took that whole oil book and we digitized it and put it into a book, and it cost a lot of money to convert it. And we embellished. I embellished it, put extra behind the scenes, deeper in-text explanations of the images. So it was really built out, and it was a tenth of the cost of the book. It was $10, and I think at we put it out there, we promoted it and everything, and I don't think we sold more than 100 of them. And I thought about it, and I thought, well, why did it go wrong? And I was actually encouraged at that time, because I was going to TED, and Al Gore was there, and he did The Inconvenient Truth, and he did a digital book of the book Inconvenient Truth, and sold like 150,000 of them, in a matter of a few months. And the same person who did that for Al Gore said, "I'll do you next." And so that was the oil book. And I quickly realized that people don't go to the internet or don't go on the computer to engage with a book. I think that most people go online or on their phone, and they want bite-sized pieces of something. They don't sit down with a book. They want a little snippet. They want a little story. They want a synthesis of the idea. And so nothing really replaces the physical book, and in a way something that goes forward in time. Because I even think, even that book that you helped to try and distribute with me and all that, it was like 2 years later, all of a sudden the operating system didn't allow half of the functions to work. And then it cost me another $3,000 or $4,000 to fix that. And then 4 years later, there was another OS that didn't work with the book. And it was going to cost $5,000, and I had like 100 people who had the book. So anybody who said, I want to go back to the book and look at it, I just said, you want the $10 back. Because I couldn't continue to spend that kind of money. So when you put these kinds of things online, there is no life for them either, because you have to constantly be going back and getting programmers to keep everything functioning in that. So whereas, I think the technology in a book is what you do, is all the latest color and all, the papers that are more consistent and the inks that are better, and all the technology is in the making of those books. But the book itself is like something that has been done through time, and beginning with Gutenberg or even before that. So we now have this object, and the kind of books that you make, people don't throw those books away. They stay. They stay in collections. They move on. They're resold. They're not seen as like a transient thing, like a magazine that you read and you throw in the garbage. These things are kept, and there's something about that containment of the whole idea of whether it's the oil project, the Water Now Africa Studies. It sits there. All the ideas are there. A great collection of the images are there that normally you'd say, I have an exhibition. It goes up. The prints come down. Some of them get sold. Some of them get put away and archived and in storage or whatever. And it slowly disappears. Whereas if you don't have that book of that idea, of that project, it lives on. It's a thing that's it's like living memory that moves through time into the future.
Another question: when you start up for such a project and you go into the field with the cameras and with a team to take the shots for the movie and take the shots for your exhibition prints and so on, do you? Of course, you have in mind that you will make later on a book, but are you working with your team and are you preparing the equipment in a certain way that the shots for the book are optimized from the beginning?
No, not really. I think what I do is when I'm shooting, I am shooting for the walls, for the prints on the walls, because I do large prints, the big, 1.5 by 2 meters, or even, a little bit smaller. But I do very large prints and super detailed prints. So I'm shooting with, the highest resolution, the best cameras. Like right now, I'm on the Phase 1 camera with 150 megapixel, or before I was with the Hasselblad with 100 megapixel. So when I optimize, for those prints on the wall, so I'm usually color balancing and getting them optimized to be large prints.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Can we say, to understand that you start up with a photo which has an enormous reserve on data, and it is a resource for 3 different artworks. So one is an exhibition, one is a film, and one is the book.
And I'd say there's number 4, which is online.
Oh yeah, and with one which is online. Okay, let's add it. And are you working simultaneously on these categories, or one after the other?
No, everything starts from the raw file, and then conversion to make the large print. So then I usually start with the selection process. So I'll start with 11 by 14s to edit down to the ones out of the whole series and I have big tables in my studio, and I'll edit down to the ones that usually make it to the book. So I usually edit the book first when I'm ready to go for the exhibition. Then I have the book, and then I lay the whole book out, whether it's 100 or 110 images, and then I lay that out. And then from that, I work with my dealers or the museum to create the shows. And then once I have all the images for the exhibitions, all of these images are now prepared in the RGB to be printed as large prints. Then when they're selected for printing, the 100 plus images, then we do the conversion to the size that you would need, or the size that would be needed, elsewhere, even in smaller images and smaller sizes for online. So we would then reduce all of those from that master files. But the master is all my printer files are my masters, and I usually keep them in RGB, and then I all things kind of descend from that file.
Mm-hmm. And so when you open up an exhibition, there's a vernissage and guests are invited. When you have the premiere of your film, is also kind of vernissage where people are coming. Are you celebrating the book when it is ready?
Absolutely. I mean, that's where like a large percentage of the books are sold at that moment, with the big openings of exhibitions. And there is kind of, I think the best time in which you present the book is they've come and they've seen the show, they've seen the movie, they're taken by the project. It's fresh in their minds, and as they come out, if you can be there and sign for them and make an inscription and sell the book, then it's actually a very compelling moment to have that translation or transaction, and they get to meet you, and I get to meet my audiences as well. So I think it is very much a celebration of the book, and the thing that people take home to keep in their library and to remind themselves of what they saw in the movie or the show they saw on the walls. And I think it's also very much more powerful when somebody has seen the images on the wall, and then when they're looking at the book, they can project to what they might look like as a big print, because it's a very different experience. I always find that a book, and when you get smaller images, you don't get as emotionally engaged. If you're standing in front of a big 60 by 80 print, 1.5 by 2 meter print, you almost have a body experience with it. You almost fall into it. So there's a whole different, experience with the work, and the book doesn't replace that experience. But the quality of your printing and the way you present, and the blacks in your book, and the detail that you can get in that size is the best surrogate experience to the actual museum show. So I'd say it doesn't replace it, but it's a damn good experience. And all the other things it brings, i.e. the essays, the thinking, the stories behind the pictures, the locations, and the whole concept, the whole body of work on that idea, all beautifully bound between two covers, is, none of those other experiences replace that. So it brings that, and the fact that this is going to go in to people's libraries and it'll be passed down to other people, it'll be sold, it's not going to disappear, it's not going into the landfill.
Mm. So, and what is the resume now? To say print is not dead?
Absolutely not. I don't know. I think this is, and I'm sure you're seeing it too. I think there's a return to books. I think that people don't have a very satisfying experience online because people want little bite-sized pieces. People want a little, what's interesting, a little bit of an edited world that, tells me what the best is and all of that. But I'm not going to dive. I'm not going to do a deep dive. I'm not going to sit down with a book. I'm not going to sit down with my computer and experience a book. It's still, nothing replaces that deep dive, that kind of contemplative moment where you have your coffee and you want to go through something and you want to read it and you want to absorb it. You want to slow yourself down. And I think there's a renaissance for photography books. I think, I'm seeing how busy you are and I think the book market is alive and well, because I think even like people are going back to analog film. I think there is something nice about the slowing down, the tactile relationship, the smell of the book, the looking at the pictures, and and studying them and working through a series. There's not a replacement for that.
I agree.
Yeah.